It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
Yeah, I'm a little curious. When you stab yourself in the hand or your finger, is your whole hand supposed to hurt? This is not about AEW, guys. I did a terrible thing today. No joke. No joke. Literally live, I'm going to have to change bandages. I stabbed myself accidentally. I did not get into an AEW frame of mind for tonight's episode. I was making myself some eggplant parmesan earlier, and I had a brand new non-stick spray that I wanted to spray the bottom of my my pan. And you know how they have like that cellophane wrapped around it, and you just try to pull the plastic cap off without pulling the wrapper off, and it won't come off. So me, like an idiot, I took a knife, and if you pretend like this is the plastic cover, I'm going like this, pushing down to try to, like break the seal. Boom. The tip of the knife went right into right here. Like the worst part you could possibly have. The worst part you could possibly have. And this happened like around 2:00 this afternoon. So it just keeps bleeding nonstop. My wife is begging me to go get stitches. So, not a good day. Not a good day so far. I hope everyone is having a wonderful weekend. I am here regardless. Welcome to your latest edition of The Sit Down. I am a very irresponsible Don Tony, obviously. I did get to eat my eggplant parmesan, by the way. It was good. It was good. Was it worth it this? Nah, not really. But you know what? At least it's not my wipe my ass hand. You know, like this is my dominant hand, so I don't have to worry about this all that much. But man, this sucks. It won't stop bleeding. Shit. So yeah, we got a Band-Aid ready. Oh, and by the way, we got a sealed syringe. We got a sealed syringe over here. What's this all about? AEW All Out. You know, these Sunday shows are based on what you want to talk about. But I could see, based on the comments right now and even some super chats that came in earlier, AEW All Out is on a lot of people's minds. If you tuned into my daily news update this morning, I gave quick results. But I gave a couple of quick thoughts also. And, you know, I told everyone that I have no problem elaborating a little bit more on this show, as long as you guys wanted me to talk about it. And I honestly think, before we get into all of your questions, and believe me, we have plenty of time for tonight's show. And a quick plug for anybody that forgot, next Sunday, Kev will be joining me. So maybe you want Kev to give his thoughts on All Out. I'm sure Kev and I will probably mention it briefly tomorrow night on a DTKC show, but next Sunday night, Kev will be joining me here for another special episode. We got a really nice turnout. We'll do it again in October, and maybe we'll make it a monthly thing going forward. So listen, I truthfully believe that I am the most fair. There's other people that are fair, but I think I am very, very fair when I talk about AEW. You know, I don't tweet what I think could resolve problems or what causes problems, good, bad, otherwise. I don't do that anymore because I'm kind of tired of every aspiring journalist who thinks that they should be on the writing team for 3 years. Every time you criticize something about AEW, they got in your face. They ganged up on you. Everything that AEW would do, it's the greatest ever, the most unbelievable, epic. This, have to capitalize every other word in their tweet, have to use emojis, have to hashtag AEW Tony Khan, Tony Khan's father, Tony Khan's father's janitor, Tony Khan's father's janitor, secret lover, Trump, anybody you want to, they got to hashtag the world. Please look at what I'm saying. Please make me feel like I'm relevant instead of just being a fan. And now, so many people who fucked AEW up the last couple of years gave this vibe on social media that, man, I don't even want to talk about AEW on social media anymore. If I write something good, everybody ignores it. If I bash it, the AEW haters have a field day with me, and the WWE diehards love it. But if you just use reasonable, props, nobody gives a shit about that. And I'm watching people who totally helped fuck up AEW the last 3 years now think that they have the answers. Guys, you've been doing this shit now for 6 months after Bischoff and Cornette made it a money-making opportunity to try to come up with solutions. And guess what? Nobody ain't listening to you. All right? People may be clicking on your shit, and you might have fellow fans kind of echoing what you're saying. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, people are smart enough to know that you caused the problems. You helped create the problems. So I don't like talking there anymore. I like talking to you. And if anybody sees it, that matters, cool. If they don't, cool. I'm not going to capitalize every other word. I'm not going to put emojis and cute little things. I'm not going to say this is the great Pac and Will Ospreay is the greatest match for 3/4 of the last 40 years, like Dave Meltzer says. I mean, what at the end of the day? So Will Ospreay could send you a Christmas card? I mean, seriously. I've been a wrestling fan since 79. It's, put it this way. You go to the Olympics and you got synchronized swimming, and you got synchronized this, you got synchronized that, you have ballet, you have, performance art. Pac and Will Ospreay, last night at midnight, when I recorded this morning's update, what did I say? I said many people will say that Pac and Will Ospreay was match of the year. Greatest match of the night. I don't disagree. But stop with this idea that everything you see is the most amazing, unbelievable thing of all time. It's not. It's not. When you have ratings, it's also based on revenue. It's based on attendance. If you based it simply on what you perceive to be the greatest of all time, then how come everybody on off-Broadway are not winning all of the awards when it comes to plays and it comes to, whatever those awards are, the Emmys? How come Off-Broadway's not sweeping the Emmys every time? Off-Broadway blows away mainstream Broadway. But you don't hear anything because it's the main stars that matter. It's people who drive the revenue, drive the advertisers, drive the overall viewership, the attendance. And the funny thing is that when everybody feels insecure, it's always, let's bring up WCW. Let's compare something from 30 years ago. Let's compare it to this. Let's compare it to that. So I don't listen to them no more. I think I'm very, very fair at what I say. And I'll say this. AEW is a niche product. It is a niche product. All right. It is fantasy camp. It is whatever you want to fucking do, as long as it doesn't violate laws, go ahead and do it. That's what it is. Ricochet went there to be free. Jon Moxley wanted to live his CZW on steroids, not real steroids. Bryan Danielson, despite doctors and people who have the betterment, he's like, no, this is my body. I'll treat it any way I want. Let's see 10, 20, 30 years from now, some of these wrestlers who have some serious fucking injuries. And then they'll say, well, you know what? It was my doing. I chose to do it. Guess what? Some of my favorites said the same thing. Mick Foley, top 3 favorite wrestlers of all time. Terry Funk, favorite wrestler of all time. They created some really, really debilitating injuries for themselves. That was their choice. So wrestlers of today, the only difference is that we know a lot more about head trauma. We know a lot more about, certain, sanitary conditions. We know more about medical. And you would think that you would be a little bit more responsible for these days. So AEW is a niche product. It is a niche product. You may want to tune in to see the best wrestle. Be prepared, though. This is not a children's family-friendly company. It's kind of funny. Like, I remember one of my old DTKC intros from many, many years ago. And a lot of you probably wouldn't remember this, but they did the Iron Sheik roast. They roasted the Iron Sheik. And there was tons of profanity. Somebody brought their little kid to the Iron Sheik roast. And the father wrote on social media in an uproar on how, it was terrible, disgusting. I had my kid there and and we created an intro out of it. You brought your fucking kid to the Iron Sheik roast? Are you an idiot? Are you a moron? He brought his fucking little kid to the Iron Sheik. What the hell did you expect? Bring your kid to a strip club and then complain about the nudity. So when you watch AEW, you need to be prepared. You're going to get all of this. Did I have much of a problem with yesterday? No. I think some of it was way over the top. The Bryan Danielson plastic bag angle with Jon Moxley, I immediately thought of Terry Funk, Ric Flair, 1989. No problem at all. I know the visual is that Bryan Danielson may pass out. Jon Moxley's trying to kill him. There's little holes in the bag. Yeah, it's disturbing. Don't ever watch a horror film. Don't ever watch a film with people. Don't watch any of those zombie TV shows. Oh my God, a plastic bag. I feel uncomfortable. Go watch Nickelodeon. The fuck away from wrestling. I feel uncomfortable. Somebody hold me, please. Please, somebody. Unbelievable. And then this syringe. Hangman Adam Page. Vanilla flavored. There's no needle in it. People losing this. What do you think? They really injected him with something? When Triple H uses a sledgehammer to the head, is he really fucking hitting somebody with a sledgehammer? You'll kill somebody if you use a sledgehammer. He used a syringe. Honestly, the only problem I had with the syringe spot is why didn't he do it in the arm? If you're going to incapacitate the arms, inject them in the arms. The fluid goes right to the muscles, and you go like this. If I inject Swerve in the mouth, you know what's going to happen? That's the only problem I had with it yesterday. I'm not yelling. I'm just Italian. There was nothing wrong with it, man. It's extreme. It's extreme. Absolutely, it's extreme. But I saw FMW. I saw All Japan. I saw in 2003. I know some people are probably shocked that I'm sticking up for a lot of this right now. I saw in 2003. If you've never seen it, there's video online. Be prepared to be shocked. Anybody ever heard of John Zandig, CZW? This is a good one. Back in 2002, I started working for XPW, promoting the shows, doing the bus trips, kind of a gopher. I admit it, fine. Plugging the stuff on the shows. You know, I had fun, man. I had a lot of fucking fun. Did it from 2002 to 2003. Unfortunately, in early 2003, Rob Black decided to send X-rated movies across state lines, and he got into a lot of federal problems along with his wife. XPW went to Pittsburgh for a show, and that pretty much was it as far as the Northeast goes. Now, every time, CZW would have a show, we would show up. Timmy Austin, God rest his soul, the ECW zombie, had a lot of friends at CZW. Smoked Out, who you may remember, we used to do podcasts with. He was one of my hosts, fellow co-hosts. He worked in CZW. He was a wrestler there. We used to go to all the CZW shows. And what we would do is if CZW was performing at a time that XPW was still performing as well, we would flyer everybody's cars, even if they weren't at the ECW arena, because ultimately XPW had exclusivity for the ECW arena. 3PW had to find a new home. CZW had to find a new home. So, you know, that's what it was. Now, once XPW was done, we still went to CZW shows. And I will never forget it. We went to CZW in the latter part of 2003. And John Zandig was in a match. And I remember blood everywhere. He used to use light tubes, he used to use weapons, he used to use lots of crazy stuff. But one night in particular, Timmy Austin said, "You guys sure you want to go? Something really fucked up is going down tonight." It involves meat hooks. And, you know, look, I watched FMW, ECW, XPW. I've seen up close and personal. You've seen me at the commentators table with Angel the Hardcore Homo versus Supreme killing themselves with shit. So we were like, yeah, let's go anyway. I mean, Matt Zombie was like, fuck yeah. What, are you kidding me? John Zandig got hung on meat hooks. This was not Big Boss Man Cage, where he was wearing some type of a harness and it simulated like he was hung. Big Boss Man was not actually hung, obviously. He wore a harness. John Zandig was legitimately being hung by meat hooks all in his back. And I will never forget the visual in the center of the ring. John Zandig with the meat hooks, but not only that, the skin stretching, that you honestly thought because of his weight that those meat hooks were going to just rip right through his skin and he was going to fall to the ground and there'd be pieces of his body on those meat hooks. That is the most disgusting thing that I ever saw in person. And the crowd there was shocked, but they were not surprised. Did they think anybody would ever be hung by meat hooks? This is a Goodfellas. Don't buy anything. The guy in the freezer, remember, don't buy anything. Nobody ever expected John Zandig to be hung by meat hooks. But at that time, you knew the feuds that he was in was insane. Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland have done a feud that if you are going to suspend disbelief, some guy goes into my house, goes into my kid's room and does what he does, and then I burn somebody's house down. What are we supposed to do? I mean, you keep amping it up a notch. Cinema. Oh my God, he drank the blood. This is the most amazing thing ever. Holy shit, cinema. This is the greatest feud in the history of wrestling. These two guys built up this hatred and the storyline so extreme that anything less would be civilized. It's kind of like the opposite of the Hulk Hogan Rite Aid commercial. Anything less would be uncivilized. Anything less would have been civilized. They got to this point. I mean, this storyline has to end. It can't go any further. The only thing you go further is you fucking kill somebody. And you're not going to simulate this. This ain't Lucha Underground. This ain't a bad dream by Sinister Minister. You're not going to kill somebody, but you're doing a storyline that is so wild and extreme and violent, and you're breaking into your kid's bedroom and burning down someone's house. What did you expect yesterday? A flaming table would be nice. Yeah, but still, listen, do I want to see again what I saw yesterday? No, I don't. But when you have hatred like that, this is why you normally don't see someone burning someone's house down. I saw people comparing it to Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. Stupid. It's stupid. This feud has been so raw and personal. It just was on a different level. What happened yesterday, should they have done the things that they did? Probably not. But how else do you settle this feud? How else? You have to totally brutalize someone. You know the last time I felt uncomfortable? Let me put it like this. Outside the Zandig meat hook thing, there's only one match in the history of WWE that I refuse to ever watch ever again. And I've said this for 20 years. There's only one match in WWE that I will never, ever watch again. And that is the I Quit match with The Rock and Mick Foley. I mean, I remember Beyond the Mat, and The Rock is hitting him with chair shots, and they have the camera pan on Mick Foley's wife and his kids, and they're hysterically crying. And I think Stand By Me was playing in the background. And it was just the most disturbing thing that I ever saw. And when you see Mick Foley's head split open like that, and Vince walks in, Mick, I appreciate what you do. Don't ever do that again. I won't watch that. But the violence and the hatred was so extreme for that feud at the time. The Rock just chair bashed him over and over and over and over. Am I exaggerating? Over. This is why feuds usually don't get this personal. Because if you listen, especially Tony Khan, and this is not a criticism or a praise for Tony Khan, this is just saying like I say it. When Tony Khan wants to please the fans, and you have a feud with this hatred involved, you're not going to, skate around it. You're not going to walk in with kid gloves. Somebody sent a super chat earlier, which I think is very, very interesting, and I want to bring this one up first because it is a legitimate question. Who sent this earlier? This was, give me 1 second. Okay, here it is. This was from Jimmy. AEW went too far last night. When do we call out the internet darlings who convinced Tony Khan that what they're doing in the ring is acceptable? And Cage Match is rating the event almost a 9.3. What a fucking joke. So I appreciate that, Jimmy. Cage Match, I don't even care about. For those who respect Cage Match and who like it, I totally respect that. For me, I rate things based on how I enjoy it, not how other people enjoy it. Because there's too many people online trying to tell me this, amazing, epic, unbelievable, the greatest in 50 years, 40 years, 20 years, most amazing, this, everything other capitalized, emojis, hashtag in the world. I don't want, no. I'll watch something and I'll be the judge. No, thank you. I don't need you to tell me. I could see with my own eyes. So I don't pay attention to cage match. Are the wrestlers are to blame? I mean, Hangman Page was part of this. Swerve was part of this. They were willing participants, and I'm sure they were the ones that came up with some of these ideas. So do they deserve the criticism? It's very easy to criticize Tony Khan. And most people online are criticizing Tony Khan. My advice to all of you criticizing the shit out of Tony Khan right now, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but have a little balls and confront the wrestlers and see what kind of answer you get. You'll probably get ignored, but have some balls to confront the wrestlers. How's that for a change? You know, the wrestlers are not robots. They're not being programmed to do in the ring based on what Tony Khan says. People come up with crazy shit, man. People, look, I talked about it even with shit that I used to do, my wrestle crap. We did a hardcore match once in Long Island, and Jay Lover, we went to Home Depot, and Jay Lover's like, I got this idea. Let's glue 100 mousetraps to a piece of wood, and I'll fall on the mousetraps. And all of them snapping, it'll sound epic. I'm like, all right, let's do it. We went to Home Depot, and we bought the shit. I went to Staples, and I bought bubble wrap. And I know some of you saw the video. I had somebody wrap my head with bubble wrap. And I'm outside the ring, and he's wrapping me around bubble wrap, and I'm going like this, and you can't see anything other than a big fat thing of bubble wrap, and I passed out on the floor. I could breathe. I made sure that there was air, but everybody at ringside thought that I couldn't breathe. Ref, do something. He can't breathe. He's collapsing. I'm laying on the floor, and I'm like, man, why didn't we do this inside the ring? Fuck. So wrestlers come up with these. If you have a big problem, confront the wrestlers and see what answer you get. My advice to anybody out there that was extremely uncomfortable yesterday, AEW just trademarked Shockwave. And we talked about it this morning. Probably going to be a pay-per-view name. But somebody asked Tony Khan in the media scrum yesterday, what's Shockwave for? And Tony Khan with the generic beating around the bush, we're going to shock the world. We're going to shock the world. There's going to be more. Remember a couple of years ago with Moxley and Omega going through glass? Remember that match, that main event where they pulled the boards back, I think, in the ring? And I remember journalists writing, I feel uncomfortable right now. Do you remember that? It was like 12:30 in the morning. They had this main event. It was the pay-per-view that refused to end. And they pulled back part of the mats in the ring, and they were doing all this hardcore crazy shit. And I see mature 30-year-olds that are writing publicly, I don't feel comfortable watching this right now. That was how many years ago? They just keep coming up with new creative ways to shock. And they're going to continue shocking. It's not going to happen every day, but you're going to continue shocking. Look at Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale yesterday. They tore it up. They told the story, even if it was a little bit too much, they told the story that they truly hate each other. Even if you knew nothing about Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale, you watch that match, you're like, wow, these two bitches, they fucking hate each other. They want to legitimately kill each other. They told the story in that ring. Some of it was a little bit way too far, but they told the story in that ring. Thank God Willow Nightingale did not get fucking hurt with that table spot outside the ring. She was within inches of having her face crushed. She could have broken an arm, and this is why sometimes you have to be more creative than doing spots. I got news for you. As ridiculous as I'm going to sound right now, and I'm sure it will sound ridiculous to some, Hangman Page taking a syringe with no needle and putting it inside the mouth of Swerve Strickland is a trillion times safer and more creative than Chris Statlander diving off the top rope, going to a table, Willow Nightingale barely getting out of the way and still getting fucking 140 pounds, full speed, landing on the side of her body. Which spot was safer? As disturbing as what Paige did was, look, I got scissors. Look, oh my God, I'm stabbing myself right now. Oh, I'm not. You know, there's visual suspension of disbelief. The visual was disturbing, but it's not as bad as you think. But if you felt uncomfortable with the plastic bag spot, with the syringe, with the chair shots, then AEW is not for you, because this isn't going away. You know, I want to say this, and thank you again, Jimmy, for that. I want to say this, and I really got to give a real special shout out to Umar, who sent the 50 spot in. He's sending this in all the way from Italy right now. He traveled to Italy for Rimini for 2 weeks, as his fiance is judging the World Roller Skating Championships. That's awesome. He wants to know, do I think AEW is doing the most hardcore and uneasy programming for buzz, or are they out of ideas? And I thank you for that, Umar. As far as the most disturbing, I mentioned John Zandig before with the meat hooks. This is something people need to understand. And I brought this up a few times on other shows, and it's credited to a lot of you out there who have said this. It is something that no wrestling journalists are talking about. Have you seen any wrestling journalists talk about what I'm about to say? When AEW is negotiating a TV deal, they don't have every network available, because what's something that almost every journalist failed to put two and two together about is AEW's TV 14. There's a lot of advertisers that don't want to advertise on AEW programming. My God, look at what happened with Pizza Hut, you know, and the Pizza Cut at that time. You know, I mean, there's a lot of advertisers who do not want to advertise during AEW programming. So there's a lot of networks that are not interested in AEW because it's TV 14, because there's a lot of over-the-top violence. There's a lot of sexual themes to it. Women bleeding. I know that sounds ridiculous, but even when we criticize Bischoff for a little bit of his clickbait stuff, he talked about it last week, and he is right. Advertisers are not very keen to seeing women bleeding, you know, in violence on television. My God, WWE won't do intergender matches. What do you think is worse? R-Truth putting his hand, or Tozawa hitting Rhea Ripley in a match, simulated violence, or two women bleeding profusely, doing the shit they did like Willow and Chris Statlander? Which one would an advertiser be more uncomfortable about? Especially that Tozawa, when he was having those matches that time, it was comedy. It didn't look like domestic abuse. It looked comedic, which is worse. So when you see AEW doing this, they're very, very limited as far as what networks will take it. They're not going to Netflix, obviously. They certainly are not going to Disney. I laughed when people like Disney, I'm like, yeah, hi-ho, this is Mickey Mouse. The next show you're going to watch is rated TV 14. Lots of sexual innuendos and violence and blood. Yay! Could you imagine that? If AEW's, I laughed when I saw people saying that. I was like, I got to do my Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse, look, we're going to see violence. Chairs, tables, ladders, barbed wire. Yay! No, people don't think. They don't think. AEW's TV deal is done. It's done. It's done. But guess what? Tony Khan has to wait until Warner Media wants to tell their investors, stockholders, and shareholders that the TV deal is done. This isn't to please Dave Meltzer. This is not to please WrestlingSchmuck.com. This is not to please those journalists that say, my sources tell me the deal is set. The announcement's going to happen any day. Nobody knows other than Tony Khan, the legal team, Warner Media Discovery, Warner Brothers Discovery. That's it. That's it. The announcement will be made when Warner Brothers Discovery is ready to announce the deal. And the deal is done. Period. There's no, people want to be on record of being that first person. So-and-so was the originator that broke the story. Nobody at Warner Media, Warner Brothers Discovery is contacting a wrestling journalist. None. Not even Meltzer, which, in case you haven't figured that out. They are not. They're a publicly traded company. So AEW is not doing this for a buzz. They're doing this because this is their identity. Warner Brothers Discovery. Listen, you look at certain cable channels out there. You know, my wife is watching some TV series with zombies. Anybody know the name of this series? With all the zombies and, you know, they're constantly trying to like kill people and, you know, the zombies trying to like sexually, you know, hit on some woman. And like every day she's watching these Walking Dead. Look at Walking Dead. Not every network out there is going to want Walking Dead on their platform. Walking Dead is a very fucking violent show. Every time late at night, I prepare the video version of the shows I do. So my wife is like, can I watch Walking Dead while you're doing that? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And for the next hour and a half while I'm preparing the show, all I hear is fucking violence and zombies and groaning and killing and this and that. And I'm like, man, I'm fucking popping an aneurysm right now. It's just nonstop gore and violence. Some networks want that. Warner Brothers Discovery wants that kind of niche on their platform. Not every advertiser does. And that's why Tony Khan is not going to get the giant, big, TV deal that he should, because they are somewhat limited. They are limited because they're not programming for a niche, for a mainstream audience. That's why AEW is never going to overtake WWE in ratings. They're a niche product. You could say we're the best wrestle, and it certainly sounds like a ripoff of WCW where the big boys play. But it's where the best wrestle, and it's where everybody gets to play also. And where everybody lives fantasy camp, do whatever the fuck they want. But there's a lot of violence, a lot of over-the-top stuff. That is their product. This is their niche. They are CZW meets whatever other wrestling platform, whatever. It meets New Japan, CZW, ECW, a regular wrestling. It's a little bit of everything. This is what they are. This is who they are. This is why they're rated TV 14. They're rated TV 14 for a reason. So they're not out of ideas. And let me say one last thing in closing with this. I hope most of you by now saw Roman Reigns at the Bloomberg Power Play event in New York City last week, because he was asked about, Netflix and having a little bit more adult-friendly entertainment out there. And Roman Reigns said that he actually is fine with PG. He thinks it's more of a challenge to be PG than be TV 14. And I have said for the longest time, that is going to be MJF's number one challenge when he ultimately goes to WWE. Now, obviously, it's a little bit easier now with the move to Netflix, but WWE understands a huge amount of their revenue is family-friendly entertainment. So you're not going to suddenly get this crazy over-the-top stuff. That attitude is back. So then you start pissing off parents. Oh, I can't have my kids watch this anymore. They're going to be very, very careful. And you're probably going to see more of the adult more targeting adult entertainment, probably between 10 and 11. Between 8 and 10, you're going to get, and why would you change? Think about it right now. Think about how WWE is killing it right now. It's about the bottom dollar. Their stock is $117 a share. They're making crazy record revenue where they go, countries, overseas. All right. They're doing top business right now. Why would you change any of that? Why? Because somebody on Twitter is like, oh, I need to see, I don't want to see Dominic. Again, this is Liv Morgan's head. This is Liv Morgan's hair. You see the pictures of Dominic lately, Liv Morgan again, like he's kissing a pet. No, I want to see tonsil hockey. I want to see tongue. I want to see almost simulated that they're about to go get a hotel room. You ever see Dominic and Liv? Everything is kiss on the top of the head like they're kissing a pet. That is done by design. They're not going to change it up simply because a very, very, very tiny niche audience online wants to see more. It's the same people who chant one more time when R-Truth is getting squashed by tsunamis. The beloved R-Truth. Oh my God. Bronson Reed. What are you doing, R-Truth? Oh my God, he's my favorite. Oh, R-Truth. Oh, one more time. WWE is not going to cater to those people. You know why? Because they're already watching. They're already watching. Was someone going to say, they're not doing Attitude. I'm not going to watch no more. They want to broaden their audience. They want to get it bigger. How do you get bigger? AEW is a niche product. That's why their ratings are going to stabilize around what they are now. I don't ever see AEW getting giant ratings ever again. You could sign Santa Claus. You could sign Obama. You could sign fucking Okada Obama, whoever you want. You could sign Julie Hart. You could sign anybody you want. At the end of the day, it is a niche product. And Warner Brothers Discovery is fine with that. It's fine. Stop comparing it to Raw. Stop comparing it to WCW. Stop comparing ECW in 2000 when they were going to TNN was never going to get more than 1.5 million, 2 million viewers. Paul Heyman promised 2 million. They ended up getting 1.1 million on average. I remember those times. I remember like, oh shit. Spike is not happy. TNN, we got popped. They were only doing about 1.1 in the ratings because they were a niche product. They were trying to show. I'll never forget when ECW had their first show on TNN, the first match they ever played was RVD versus Jerry Lynn. Because they wanted to set the tone that they were more like WWE, like great wrestling isn't just about the hardcore violence. And then quickly you realize that nothing you were going to do was going to change that. Thank you, Umar, again for that. But no, I don't think AEW is run out of ideas. This is a niche audience. It's a niche product. It is not for kids. I don't care who wrestles. You can have 1, 2, 3 matches where people just wrestle. Oh my God, my kid could watch that. Yeah, well, you know what? When you watch a violent movie, there are always scenes where somebody's driving in their car. Somebody's on the telephone. Somebody is running away. There isn't somebody being killed 100% of the time in a movie. There's going to be breaks. There'll be conflicts. You'll have somebody who is a terrorist and he'll have a conflict. He goes to a dance club. He starts talking to a girl at a bar. Oh, my kid can watch that. There's nothing wrong with that. Then half hour later, he blows up the place. AEW is not a children's product. And Warner Brothers Discovery is fine with that. That's why they are not in any type of jeopardy whatsoever. And probably one of the biggest reasons why there was a delay is to see how the advertisers were going to react to certain product, see how far they could go. So thank you, Umar, for that. All right, let's go to questions. You know what? Before we go any further, so overall, I'm not going to give every match result. I did that on the news update this morning, but I will tell you, there wasn't a bad match on the card. I know people were still a little underwhelmed about Mercedes Moné. She had the match with Sheeta. I thought it was her best match since being in AEW. She hasn't had many matches in AEW, but obviously Sheeta is definitely one that could hold her own. I thought the match was decent. I was pleasantly surprised to see Jack Perry, the second half of that match, turn it around. Because I was watching social media as that match was going down and people were eating him alive. He has no business being in the ring with Bryan Danielson. Halfway through the match, it just kicked into gear. The interesting thing about it is you kind of see where Bryan Danielson's final matches are going. He's going to take on Christian Cage. He's going to take on Jon Moxley. He's going to take on Darby Allin. Maybe one more person. I'm talking about singles action. That's where they seem to be going with this. Remember, Christian Cage has a guaranteed titles match. So Christian Cage will ultimately be taking on Bryan Danielson. Moxley will have a match with Danielson. That's probably one of Bryan Danielson's picks for one of his final matches. I want to have one with Moxley. They do have history before the Blackpool Combat Club. I don't know if I want to see Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. I mean, Nigel McGuinness used to be great. And, it's just like when you see somebody return at the Royal Rumble and they still got it to an extent, that doesn't mean that I want to see 15 minutes of that person. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Listen, of course, Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness have a long history together. It could happen. I don't know if everyday wrestling fans want to see that. I don't think if the AEW audience in unison want to see that. I see a lot of people saying, oh my God, why don't they give Nick Aldis a match? Why don't they give Adam Pearce a match? Unless they're facing each other, I don't know if the WWE Universe in unison really cares to see Adam Pearce back in the ring. So, Psycho, Jacob Fatu is destined to be a legitimate champion in the WWE. That guy has superstar written all over him. Jacob Fatu is over. WWE knows it. Jacob Fatu knows it. Roman Reigns knows it. That guy, I think it was Matt Hardy that said that Jacob Fatu will headline a WrestleMania. I could see it. I could absolutely see Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu main eventing or semi-main eventing a WrestleMania. The guy is a machine. Let's keep it in perspective right now. Not now, but man, he has impressed everybody since he's come in. That guy he's a future megastar in WWE. But again, I thought overall, if you're a fan of AEW and you know what to expect with the violence, if you did not see All Out, you're thinking about it, I actually thought All Out was better than All In. I don't know if it was because it was shorter. I don't know if it's because All Out was hyped. All In was hyped for a whole fucking year. All Out was built in 2 weeks. And I thought under 2-3 weeks notice, All Out did a spectacular job setting these matches up. All In, that 1 year push was kind of too much for me. So I would say yes, definitely see it. Definitely see it. DeMarcus sends in a super shout out and he says American Made needs to win the street fight on Raw. I kindly disagree. Who on the Wyatt Six gets pinned? You're not going to have Joe Gacy or Dexter Lumis or Eric Rowan or even Bo Dallas right now unless there's mega controversy. You're not going to see any of them get the pin. Remember, it's a 4-on-4 street fight. That doesn't mean that Ivy Nile and Nikki Cross can't get involved. Of course they're going to get involved. Anybody can get involved. Unless somebody shows up and takes out Uncle Howdy outside of the Alpha, the American Made, nah, I don't see the Wyatt Six losing right now. I see, and think of it like this. If one of the Creed brothers gets pinned, they're not losing any momentum right now. The Creed brothers are still new on the main roster. Creed brothers will be eating a lot more losses. So I think Wyatt Six prevails. I don't see American Made winning unless somebody else gets involved that we're not thinking right now. So Ronnie C., thank you for the 10 spot. And he says, thank you for clearing up the info on the WWE specials coming to NBC in the Vince documentary. It seems like your copycats shifted their Vince talk the day after I called out their bullshit. And he used the clown emoji, but it does not show up on the screen. Thank you, Ronnie. Listen, we knew what the Vince documentary was going to be. This Vince documentary was pretty much done up until the scandal. They had 5 parts already done. You know, people intentionally for the last couple of weeks have been trying to tell you that this was going to be a hit job. I tell you, I'm shocked. I am fucking shocked to hear Conrad say that this docuseries is a hit job on Vince McMahon. It is not a hit job on Vince McMahon. They're going to set up why this guy, how he became so successful and changed the landscape of professional wrestling forever. Of course, it is going to end on a negative note. Vince McMahon, I think, is going to be indicted by the FBI for misappropriation of funds. I don't think he's getting arrested from the FBI for the acts themselves. I think he's going to get arrested for the way he handled money. Of course, it's going to end with a negative, but 90% of that documentary is going to have nothing to do with Janelle Grant. And people for 3 weeks lied to all of you. I shouldn't say lie. They were hoping that this documentary was going to be a focus on how bad of a man Vince McMahon is. And now they realize that, no, that's not the case. Suddenly everybody's changed. Oh, this is what the Vince documentary is about. It's kind of funny. I think it's hilarious. For the last 3 weeks, they were pushing this narrative, and that was not the case. Last week on Patreon, we talked what chapter 1 was going to be, 2, 3, 4, 5, and chapter 6 is going to be the one. Chapter 6 is going to be the one where they're really going to focus on what happened. And the problem is to be continued. We don't know the outcome of the case. We don't know what truly happened with him and Janelle Grant. I'm not wishing one way or the other. What happens if you find out that she was a willing participant, was just a freak? As disturbing as that is, you know, I put this picture in my computer the other day, and I was thinking about it. Look at that picture. Put tits on him. Put blonde hair, all feminine features, give him a vagina. Would I sleep with that even if it had billions of dollars? No. I'm looking at Janelle Grant, and I'm saying to her, what the fuck did you see in that guy? That just looks like an old prune. I mean, my God, even if he could do good in bed, I would just buy a plastic doll that looks like they're 30 years old and have my way. I will never, ever understand how someone that young and that attractive with that much of a brain fall for that. And of course it's money, but I'm just saying to myself, seriously, is there anybody out there tuning in right now that even if that was a woman, I'm baffled by it. But we don't know what the end result is. What happens if something comes out and it's revealed that she was just a kinky freak all along? I doubt it. What if? What if? What if? What do you do? what do you say? You can't force the ending of this movie. You could try to create an alternate ending, but you can't force the ending in a movie. Listen, there's people out there that have recreated how The Sopranos should have ended. There are people who have recreated how Seinfeld's last episode should have ended. The problem is they didn't end the way that you wanted them to end. You can't call the way you want this to end for Vince McMahon. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And it's not going to finish. This documentary is going to be left with a question mark. See, I did that backwards because I know I'm on camera. So, and as far as the NBC specials, listen, I like WrestleVotes and I like Post Wrestling. But man, I mean, I posted it for the channel members yesterday. There's a fucking press release from WWE almost a year ago where it literally says, NBC, 4 specials. And then you start figuring out, wait, they can't do it on Mondays, it's Raw. They're not going to do it on Tuesdays because it's NXT. They're not going to do it on Wednesdays because they don't do wrestling shows on Wednesdays. They're not going to do it on a Thursday because they don't do wrestling shows on a Thursday. They're not going to do it on a Friday because it's SmackDown. That just leaves Saturday and Sunday. And which night is NBC more inclined to do a special? Saturday night. Oh, Saturday night. NBC. Saturday night's main event. Guess what? We've had Saturday night's main events not that long ago. That's what it is. And these people are like, oh, breaking news. It's rumored to be Saturday night's main event. They found the press release from a year ago and everybody forgot about it. And they're like, my sources tell me that there's going to be 4 specials. 4 specials on NBC. Go Google it, everybody. There's a press release on WWE.com 1 year ago, I think September 23rd. WWE and NBC to have 4 specials in 2024 and 2025. You know why it became news now? Because Fox is done. That's why it became news now. Nobody got it exclusive. They're just trying to be cute. But I appreciate you for taking note of it. Okay. We have an Omos supporter, not Hamas, Omos. Steve Joseph. When do I think we'll see Omos back on TV? Oh, I'm going to be a dick. I think we will see Omos back on TV either on a Monday or a Friday. I couldn't resist. I think we're going to see Omos back on TV very, very soon. Very soon. Royal Rumble, obviously, I think could be, but would I say as early as this Friday? I don't think Omos will be Kevin Owens' mystery partner. Man, that would be fun if it was Bret Hart, but I don't think they're going to be in Canada next Friday. Maybe they are. I think it's going to be Sami Zayn. I just get a weird feeling it's going to be Sami Zayn. Because remember, we had Austin Theory and Grayson Waller pop up on Raw a couple of weeks ago because they needed to settle a score. And now Kevin Owens has a mystery partner on SmackDown. I'm thinking, okay, since Austin Theory and Grayson Waller showed up on Raw one night, maybe Sami Zayn could show up on a SmackDown one night. That's kind of what I think. I think Omos will be back on TV within the next month. I really do. He's healthy. He's been doing a lot of promotional work for the WWE. And, you know, listen, I would be lying to you if I told you I knew Omos's contract. But one thing I will tell you, and I got this straight from someone who works there that is good friends with Omos, he is not breaking the bank with his WWE contract. This is not a case where they are grossly overpaying him and they just feel that he is not worth that kind of expense in 2024. He's doing a lot of promotional work. Plus, Omos, listen, you see the effects of what's gone on with the wrestlers in India. You know, you've seen like all of a sudden there's been the releases of Indus Sher and Jinder Mahal and Mustafa Ali left and Mansoor left. And a lot of people thought, wow, they're really getting rid of that Middle East presence for WWE. That's because it's TKO Group Holdings now. and TKO Group Holdings realized, like, you know what? We don't need Australian talent to go to Australia. Of course, Drew McIntyre Clash at the Castle was a different story because he had the match with the Bloodline and lost, and then he had the match this time around and he lost again. So Drew McIntyre, that was a major storyline. It's different. But when they go to other places, you can have one person. Gunther, Germany. Need I say more? So they realize you don't need, listen, I always felt, and I know this sounds awful, but I always felt the Iconics were signed because WWE was trying to represent multiple countries out there. I really do. I always thought that if they were from Texas instead of, I think, Australia, wherever they were from, I don't think they would have been signed at that time. If they would have come out there and go, Iconic, I think it would have been like, no, you got to go to NXT first. I've been in NXT. Well, you need to go back there. Omos will be back on TV soon. I really believe that. Omos, he started a weird YouTube channel, like talking about cologne and stuff like that. I think we'll see Omos back on TV. Omos, I like Omos. When he fought Brock Lesnar, man, go back and check my content at that time. People is shitting all over on social media. I'm like, you know what? I want to see this. I want to see this because Brock Lesnar wanted to work with Omos. Undertaker sings the praise of Omos. A lot of people behind the scenes like, you know what? That fucking guy really, really is a good guy, works his ass off and really wants it. That's somebody I want to see do better and not just shit on him like, Omos. What? So I like Omos. I am a fan of Omos. I want to see him back. Copper the Great. Thank you for the 20 spot, my friend. He says, rest in peace to Sean O'Hare. Died 10 years ago today. Man, Sean O'Hare. I'm not telling you something you don't already know. Kevin, and Kross was a big fan of Sean O'Hare. I did not realize it was the 10-year anniversary. I will tell you this, just on spur of the moment, thinking back to Sean O'Hare. You know, when you get someone like Sam Roberts that says Kevin Sullivan and his devil worship in Florida was way ahead of its time. And I know that sounds wonderful and beautiful, but it's so dumb because you would not be able to carry around women on a leash in the 90s, in the 2000s. There would have been all these groups out there fighting and this and that. No, you did the devil worship in the 80s because that reflected heavy metal and the bands and a lot of the things that were going down at the time. Devil worship was a big thing. Damien Omen's 666, The Exorcist, and everything else that was going on in the 70s and the 80s. No, it was the perfect time. Sean O'Hare was a little bit ahead of its time. I could see Sean O'Hare in the Snowflake era. Oh, my God. It's okay. It's all right. You could take that. Come on. They're giving millions and millions of dollars to all these illegal immigrants. You work hard. You pay your taxes. You've done everything the right way. You deserve a little something also. Why is it that somebody who, with no identity or no worth whatsoever to this country, other than the fact that they have a heartbeat, why should they get a free phone and free this, free that? And meanwhile, you can't even pay your credit card bill. It's okay. You can lie on your application, get a little bit extra. At the end of the day, you're paying your taxes, they're not. At the end of the day, you're paying AT&T or Verizon Fios, they're not. At the end of the day, you're going to the grocery store with cash and they're going with EBT cards. It's okay. It's all right. Guys, it's okay. You can vote for Trump. Listen, I know everybody talks about January 6th, but I don't think Trump really hates this country. I think he just hates the fact that people just, want to do whatever they can to keep their power. And that's not a country I am proud of. It's okay. It's all right. We know that you feel that Black Lives Matter. We know that you feel that every gender should be treated equal. You believe in that. It's okay. You could vote. I'm not telling you to do this, guys. I'm just pretending I'm Sean O'Haire right now. There are so many goddamn things. Guys, it's okay. You're not getting it at home. You could go on OnlyFans. Are you really having physical intercourse with anyone? Is that cheating? You're just admiring beauty that somehow gets you aroused. It's okay. You give a woman $10 on OnlyFans, it's just like going to a store and buying a Playboy magazine. What's wrong with that? It's okay. You could do it. You're not cheating. Oh my God, I could do this all night long with Sean O'Haire. As much, and plus the physical stature of Sean O'Haire. Sean O'Haire was a big man. What was he, like 6'6", 6'8"? That guy was big motherfucker. I sound like that rapper. You're a big motherfucker. Sean O'Haire was way ahead of its time. And I could see Sean O'Haire murdering it right now. That's why, man, could you imagine Kross doing a Sean O'Haire gimmick in AEW? And I'm saying this to be legit because obviously WWE, too big of a company to do the things that I said. But oh my God, if you do it on a smaller scale for another company, it's okay. You can take that. You're not going to affect this country. You're not taking the food out of it. No one's going to starve to death because you took an extra 100. It's okay. You can lie on your taxes. You worked hard. You took a lot of abuse. You deserve a little bit of happiness. Sean O'Haire, unfortunately, was a fuck up outside the ring. Sean O'Haire had drug problems, had a lot of behavioral problems. There was a lot of talk that he had a lot of roid rage. He did, I think, boxing. He tried to venture in, a little bit of boxing. I don't think it was MMA. I think it was boxing. It didn't work out all that well. Sean O'Haire, I absolutely loved back in the day. The Mark Jindrak, Sean O'Haire tag team, I was not that much of a fan of. The pairing with Roddy Piper was just weird. The pairing with Roddy Piper was just freaking weird. It felt so random. And then they got Zach Gowen involved, and Roddy Piper pulled the leg off of Zach Gowen, and Sean O'Haire's like, I'm out of here. It was just, I don't know, it was just bizarre. But Sean O'Haire, man, that guy, the face, the look, the body, the presence, just the visual, those vignettes, those were spectacular, man. I wish Sean O'Haire was still around. I could only imagine what could have been with him. World champion? No. Someone like that isn't a world champion. Someone like that is someone that you want to see get the shit knocked out of. Because that motherfucker's stirring stuff up. So, 10 years, man. 10 years already. Crazy, man. I got to go check out the DTKC show from 10 years ago and see how we covered it. I mean, I know we definitely gave much love and props, but tragic. Definitely tragic. He got into legal trouble. I remember those mugshots. I know of at least two. He was a problem. He had a lot of problems, and unfortunately, that's it. It's a shame, man. I don't think he was as young as people think, though. How old was Sean O'Haire when he died? My guess is he might have been like 36. Sean O'Haire, the interesting thing about Sean O'Haire, somebody could check his age. Maybe he was younger. But Sean O'Haire, when he was in WCW, I think people thought that he was a lot younger than he actually was. Rick O'Reilly says 43. He was 40. Well, actually, yes, that makes sense because he died in 2014. We're talking about WWF years earlier. So, yeah, that makes sense. Yes, that does make sense because he was in his 30s in the WWE. So, yeah, 43, man. Crazy. Speaking of Kross, Brian Hunt with a 2-spot. Thank you, Brian. By the way, shout out to Austin Nance. My apologies. 42 months, not only being a channel member here, but also manning the ship along with Chaos and OTS Tribal Queen. Shout out to Austin Nance. Much love, my friend. 42 months here. And also, Daniel-san. Is Daniel-san around? Did we see Daniel-san tonight? Daniel-san, Austin Nance says, no worries. I mean, no worries. How's about thank you, DT? That was very nice of you. Oh, that was very cool shout out. I'll be here for another 42 years. No, I'm only kidding. I'm just joking with you. Austin Nance is good people. Daniel-san won the Bash in Berlin predictions contest. So Daniel-san, I should have mentioned it earlier in the show, but Daniel-san, you see this, reach out to me on Twitter, Patreon. If you can't reach me on those ways, let me know. Just post a comment on the replay of the show, how you want to reach out, and I'll send you an email or something. So I have not checked my emails in a month. I got hacked. I got hacked where I'm locked out. Like nobody's been getting emails from me and they're not. It's just I got locked out. So I've been working on that. But Mark Lashane says he was working with the Iron Sheik and Eric Sims for the Iron Sheik roast and convention. And the next day, Columbus Day, Monroe, New Jersey, Crown Plaza. Awesome time. I liked Eric Sims, man. I mean, early on, Eric Sims was a dick. You know why Eric Sims was a dick? Because Eric Sims knew who I was. And I'm not saying that bragging, but he knew who I was through the hotlines, through Frank Goodman and USA Pro Wrestling and other stuff. And it was a time where I bumped into him at a UXW event. And I think the New Age Outlaws were main eventing and they were part of TNA at the time. And like I started talking to him and he was like talking to me like he didn't know who I was. And he was just, but he was like doing it intentionally. Like it was just a bizarre thing. But Eric Sims, I liked him. I kind of felt bad with the way the Iron Sheik treated him. Don't you ever get my medicine. Eric Sims is still with us. Iron Sheik is not. But Brian asks, why is Kross not connected with the WWE audience as of yet? I'm not just saying this. I really mean this. I think Kross has connected with the WWE universe enough where fans do want to see him get his ass kicked on TV. I don't like the Final Testament group. Scarlett is fine. Believe it or not, even Paul Ellering, they've made him a little more animated now, and he's changed his look a little bit. So Paul Ellering is fine as well. AOP, though, something is just not working with AOP. And the problem is they're too big to be losing the way they are. And that's the problem. Plus, it feels very random. It feels very random. I truly believe that within 6 months, Kross and Scarlett will be on their own. I think there will be a split with the Final Testament. How it happens, I don't know. You know how I know Kross is clicking with the fans? There's enough fans online that socialize with him online. He is very, very friendly with fans online. He has a lot of interaction online, and, the fans are receptive to that. Is he one of the more over guys in the company? No, not by a long shot. I think a lot of people expected Scarlett to do more than just be at ringside. Like they expect her. It feels like, let me put it this way. Doesn't it feel like Elektra Lopez is a lot more involved with Legado del Fantasma than she is with the Final Testament? Like, we know she's with Kross, but she's not with the Final Testament, if that makes sense. Like, you feel Elektra Lopez is with the whole group. And I think the AOP, when they break them away, I think that's when Kross will turn it to the next level. Kross could do it in the ring. He works great. He sells great. He puts on great offense. It's, unfortunate what happened with Vince with the mask. That caused a lot of damage. I still think when they came back and they were doing the stuff in the parking lot, and, you know, just the random hit jobs and all that stuff. And especially when they showed him in like the really nice Dodge Charger and speeding away and having kind of like that Natural Born Killers theme to it. Maybe once they go to Netflix, they can turn this character up a little bit more. But I think it's definitely better than what it was a couple of months ago. Just my opinion. DeMarcus says Legado needs a push. I mean, they just re-signed Humberto Carrillo, and they signed Angel Garza again a couple of months ago. 2-year deal, from what I heard. So they're going to be around for the next 2 years. You know, I just, maybe once the Bloodline feuds with the Bloodline, maybe that's when Legado will get a little bit of a run. Santos Escobar definitely deserves more. The problem is, and this is kind of strange, it seems like take away LA Knight's title and there's like no titles to be had on SmackDown. You know what I mean? Like, I know there's tag titles, but you take away LA Knight's title, they kept LA Knight without a title for so long. No one wants to see LA Knight lose a belt this soon. So LA Knight's got a stranglehold on that title for the foreseeable future. Cody Rhodes still has a stranglehold on his title. So it's like, what title could Santos go for? You know what I mean? There's really not much else. And yeah, I think you might have to really tread, you know, like mid-card for the next 6 months. They might be forced to be mid-card for the next 6 months. See what they've done with Andrade and Carmelo Hayes? They're eating up 2 months by doing this stuff. They're eating up 2 months. And the next thing you know, 2 months. Look at the Wyatt Six. Guys, if you want a perfect example, look at the Wyatt Six. What if I told you that it is almost 3 months since they almost murdered Chad Gable? Almost 3 months. So you realize they've been on the main roster for almost 3 months. And all they have done is American made. 3 months. That's a long time. And it ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. Listen, I think the next step for the Wyatt Six is the Judgment Day. I'm telling you, you know, sometimes I close my eyes for real. I close my eyes and I see how it would play out on TV. That's why, like I said, even with Collision on Friday, did you see Collision on Friday when Jericho stole Orange Cassidy's backpack and he threatened to cut it up unless Orange Cassidy gives him his $7,000? I watched that segment and I literally closed my eyes and I said, oh my God, you need Orange Cassidy to look at Jericho on the Titantron and just say, whatever, I'll just go buy another one. I think it would have been the funniest fucking thing. And Jericho would have been there with a backpack and throw it down like, holy shit, I just realized I stole this backpack. He could just go out and buy another. Knowing Orange Cassidy's character and his gimmick, and Jericho's like, look, I got your backpack. Look, I'm going to cut it up. 1,000,000 pieces if you don't give me my 7,000. And just Orange Cassidy look at him and be like, whatever, just go buy another one. And they didn't do it. I picture Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio in that ring. If you even want to go one step further, Carlito, JD McDonough, Finn Balor, something happens and the lights go out. And immediately you're going to get holy shit chants. And then you're going to realize, holy shit, Nikki Cross and Liv Morgan. Holy shit, Dominic Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio against, I don't know, choose your pick. You know, you have Finn Balor and Eric Rowan or Carlito and Eric Rowan. And yeah, the Wyatt Six and the Judgment Day, I've been saying it for over a month now and I'm sticking to it. That there's going to be that moment. I hope it's just Dominic and Liv in the ring. I want Dominic and Liv to be the only two people in the ring. And then all of a sudden the lights go out like they do with the Wyatt Six. Everybody will get that instant reaction like, oh, fuck. The Wyatt Six and the Judgment, that's for me, that's the next step. It's got to be the next step. Thank you, Brian, for that. Tyrese, Valeriano, have you ever used the term Mamaluke? Yeah, Kevin and I shouted out Tony Mamaluke the other day. Gave us a little bit of love. No, I never used Mamaluke outside of talking about the Mamalukes. I never used it. I never saw someone like, oh, you fucking Mamaluke. I used to use Matarats, the word that I created. You know, that's the only ones. I never ever called anybody a Mamaluke. In fact, I'm saying this with the utmost honesty. I don't think I've ever heard anybody in my neighborhood ever use the term Mamaluke. And I'm in Howard Beach. I'm 3 blocks from where John Gotti lived. I mean, I've pretty much grew up, the last 30 years in Howard Beach. I worked for my dad's store in 1982 in Howard Beach. I mean, a lot of you know the old stuff. I don't recall anybody ever saying, hey, Mamaluke. No, they don't. They would say other words, but we're not going to repeat them here because I don't want to get in trouble. Gabagool, absolutely. Hey, give me a half a pound of gabagool. That's legitimately, we do say that. We say prosciutto. We say mozzarella, gabagool. I'm trying to think of other words that people say. The best, I know I've said this a trillion times over the years, the best are the fat 80-year-old. See, now they're 80 because I've been saying this for 20 years. And I used to say the 60-year-olds. Now it's the 80-year-old women that speak mostly Italian, that still live in the neighborhood. When they used to go into my dad's store, I still hear once in a while now. Like I'll be on the counter waiting for my order, and an old lady will come in and she'll say, give me a half a pound of M. Not ham, M. Give me a half a pound of M. Sounds like Emma. M. Give me a half a pound of chis. C-H-I-S, chis. So no, I've never used the term Mamaluke. And Brian Hunt, was I a fan of the original Beetlejuice film? Do I plan on watching the new one? Saw the new one's really good. I actually did like it when it came out. Beetlejuice. I thought Michael Keaton was great in it. It was a fun, Tim Burton, I think, made that, right? It was a fun movie when it came out. Holy shit, the amount of merchandise that came out at that time. Oh my God. There was so much merchandise that you could buy for Beetlejuice when it came out. It was a good movie. I will watch this one. I absolutely will watch this one. I haven't yet, obviously, but yeah, I plan on watching it. Michael said that's his favorite Michael Keaton character. I did like Michael Keaton when he did Batman. I was never a fan of Batman growing up other than Adam West. And those shows were cheesy. Pow, Kaboom, and all that stuff. It was a cheesy show, but I still liked it. Catwoman. But yeah, I am going to watch this. Absolutely will watch it. Somebody asked a question that I definitely wanted to answer. Yes, Kevin, I mentioned Emma this morning on the Daily News Update. Her and Riddick Moss are expecting their first child. Congrats to them. So yeah, they revealed the pregnancy test over the weekend, and Emma is pregnant. So I hope that they're working, doing something. They look like they have a nice house, and like I'm looking and I'm like, I hope they're working. Seriously. I'm not saying that to be funny too. Vance Rawlings. My thoughts on Cain Velasquez's legal problems. Cain Velasquez will be, they will announce his jail sentence, I think, in October. He has pleaded no contest to the charges. You cannot be judge, jury, and executioner. And he tried to be it that day. Even though he is considered a hero in a lot of people's eyes, I don't think that The judge will try to make an example out of him, but you do need to realize that the judge is going to send a message that no one has the right to take the law into their own hands. I expect him to get a little bit of jail time. I would be surprised if it's more than a year. I've seen people say 7 years, 10 years. I would say a year at the most, maybe house arrest, maybe a lot of community service, but he has had jail time already. So even if he's given a year sentence, he has a lot of time served. I don't think he'll be in jail all that long. And I absolutely do believe that he will be back in the WWE once he is done with all of this. I think his fighting career is pretty much done at this point. Look, never say never about a return bout. I mean, people older have come back, but I think on his level, I mean, people were saying he was on his way to GOAT status, and look what happened. So, Gruss asked, does pineapple belong on pizza? For me, no. No. Pizza's supposed to be spicy, savory, tomato sauce, oregano, garlic powder, salt, pepper. You know, you could have meat on it, olives, you know, even peppers to an extent, green peppers, yellow peppers, banana peppers. I don't want anything sweet on my pizza unless I'm having like Nutella pizza. Any of you ever have Nutella pizza? Guaranteed to put 10 pounds on you. I don't like pineapple on pizza. I tried it once. I don't like sweetness on the pizza. So, no. Steven would like to know, do I think Shane has anything to do with Jon Moxley? I doubt it. I really do. I think, you know, this Moxley feels that what has happened to Bryan Danielson has become a shell of what he was. I think he's starting this new, not necessarily a Blackpool Combat Club, but he's starting this new fighting club, a shoot club, or I don't know if it has anything to do with Ring of Honor. I don't think it really does, but I just, for what? Like Shane McMahon coming in. Bryan Danielson is at the end of his AEW in-ring career. He only has a handful of matches left. You start bringing in a Shane element to this, I mean, you have to have somebody be the poster child of AEW. And right now, that poster child is Bryan Danielson. It's not Hangman Page. It's not Swerve Strickland. MJF is back to being officially a heel. So if Shane is revealed, you have to have a group go against it. I wonder if Moxley is going to be a hired guy on behalf of the Elite. I wonder if the Elite form an allegiance with Moxley and Shafir and Claudio and others, and then this is going to force Tony Khan to try to like put some people together. The problem is they didn't do anything after Tony Khan got pile driven, you know, and hit by Jack Perry. So at this point, I don't know what the payoff would be. I don't think it makes real sense. I don't. All right. I got to change this fucking Band-Aid. This is going to take literally 2 seconds. I will answer questions while I change my Band-Aid. For those who are tuning in a little bit late, I accidentally stabbed myself earlier. It is terrible. I don't know if you could see it. I don't know if you could see the gash. Still freaking bleeding. See it? See, if I go like this, it looks like a mouth. And actually, if I go sideways, it looks like a vagina on its period. Not fun. This is like the 5th Band-Aid I've had to change. This is not fun, but I'm still fucking bleeding. My wife is upset. She thinks I should get stitches. See, look, still bleeding. Just put it on. I stabbed myself earlier, accidentally, trying to open up a bottle of something. Bobby Means with a comment, at this point, it's laughable what they're doing with Moxley. It's only been 1 week. I wouldn't say it's laughable. We don't know where it's going as of yet. I think it does set up Moxley and Danielson. Didn't they have 2 matches against each other already? I remember I made a thumbnail a couple of years ago. Anybody remember that thumbnail? I just had the Roman numeral 3, and it was Danielson and Moxley. And then they formed the Blackpool Combat Club. I'm like, oh, never mind. I think they might have had 2 memorable bouts. They might have had more than 2, but they've definitely fought. Fucking bleeding already. Yeah, I'm going to try not to go to the hospital and get stitches, but I'm just mad that it's still bleeding. It's been bleeding now for 8 hours. So, sucks. CJ says, New Yorkers don't need stitches. They need duct tape. I got duct tape right here. Gorilla tape. If I was Sabu, I'd be wrapping it with Gorilla tape right now. Oh, yeah. This is good. This is good. They're all good, but Dirty Niner 413. Can I recommend the perfect Italian sandwich? Shit. The perfect Italian sandwich is the reason why I have about 30 extra pounds on me. And the greatest thing about it is most of it is still keto as long as you don't put it on Italian bread. Everybody knows the story that when I brought Heroes to the ECW locker room back in 2001, that Guilty as Charged 2001, Francine is shown on the pay-per-view acting like she's going to give head to a hero sandwich. If you look at the hero sandwich closely, it's my dad's store. It was our heroes that we brought for everybody. They used it as a prop on the pay-per-view. But I will tell you, everybody went nuts for the hero that time. And believe it or not, since 1982, it hasn't changed one bit. Semolina Italian bread. Semolina Italian bread. That is the most important ingredient in this. Take the guts out. Take the inside out. You don't have to take all of it out, but take some of the guts out, because what you put on the sandwich gets very, very thick. And if you don't take out some of the inside of the bread, it'll be like this. You take the guts out. First line is ham. Next line is salami. Then you just put like a row of cold cuts. I recommend only doing 1 row. If you want to do 2, you can, but I would do 1 row, because first row ham, second row salami, third row pepperoni. Then you put a row of mortadella, a row of ham gabagool. If you like supersad, you could put supersad on there. Not everybody likes supersad because it's very fatty. Then you put provolone cheese. And then if you want to put an extra row of ham or pepperoni, you can. Then what you add is you add shredded lettuce. Like if you have a slicer machine, you put the head of lettuce on a slicer machine and you slice it. And it gets very, very, almost like shredded paper in a paper shredder. You put shredded lettuce on there, tomatoes, red onion, green peppers, and then you make an oil and vinegar mix. You take red wine vinegar, not balsamic, red wine vinegar, olive oil, oregano, salt, pepper, mix it all together and put that on the bread. It is the Godfather hero. It is the ultimate hero sandwich. I still eat them now. I just don't eat the bread. I just put it on my keto bread, and it tastes the same to me, because you taste nothing but the meat. But people make the mistake and put balsamic vinegar instead of red wine vinegar, and they fuck it up, because the red wine vinegar is a nice offset to some of the spiciness of the cold cuts. I'm telling you, it's the ultimate sandwich. Ultimate sandwich. My father's been making it exactly the same for 40 years. And this is a true story. This is legit. Christmas time, when my mom has us over for Christmas, even if she's not cooking, even if they get catering or they just order something out, every year she will always get a 3-foot Italian hero from my dad's store, and we eat hero. Every year for Christmas time, 3-foot hero has been a must. It's been that way for 40 years, for real. That is the ultimate sandwich. Some people try to add extra things. Don't put banana peppers. This isn't Subway. Even though the Subway's Italian BMT is pretty good, just put, like I said, lettuce, red onion, green peppers, olive oil, red wine vinegar, salt, pepper, oregano. Yeah, that's it. But definitely scoop out the bread. That is a must. Trust me. If you don't scoop out the bread, you're not going to be able to bite into it, and you're going to taste a shitload of bread. It's not going to be fun. DeMarcus celebrating 5 months with the family. Thank you, DeMarcus. Will anyone that comes from AEW to WWE go to the main roster directly, or do they have to go through NXT first? As of right now, I think you got to go through NXT first. And here's the reason why. NXT has become something that it wasn't even during the black and gold days. During the black and gold days, NXT was never discussed during Raw or SmackDown. Very, 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 very rare would you ever hear a mention of NXT. You'd see a commercial for NXT coming up tomorrow on NXT, but it was rarely ever mentioned. Now, NXT is name dropped on the main roster all the time. So, for example, Ricky Starks. Kevin and I already discussed this. Ricky Starks, I think, is going to show up in NXT, and he's going to confront Ethan Page, and Ethan Page is going to have that look on his face thinking like he saw a ghost. And what happens is Ricky Starks now is on the WWE machine, and he is getting TV time without affecting the Bloodline, the Judgment Day, LA Knight, Legado del Fantasma, American Made, Alpha Academy, Wyatt 6, and anybody else you want to put in there. So even though he will be in NXT, the main roster will mention him. They'll mention him all the time. So no, he won't be on Raw and he won't be on SmackDown right away, but we will know that he is there, and they will mention him and they will plug him, and he'll get acclimated with the WWE machine. The WWE universe will start to know who he is. You know, contrary to what you believe, there's a lot of young fans that do not follow AEW that really have never seen a Ricky Starks match. So as time goes on, the whole WWE universe gets to know Ricky Starks a little bit, just like they're getting to know Ethan Page right now. Then when it's time to bring him to the main roster, it doesn't feel like somebody new. Jade Cargill was a little bit of an exception. A lot of us thought that Jade Cargill would get reps at NXT. They teased it, but they brought it to the main roster. And honestly, I don't think that was a mistake. There's nobody right now, nobody that I think becomes available that would go right to the main roster. I don't really think there's a necessity for it. You know, I always bring up Indy Hartwell as an excuse. And yes, it's a bad example now, but I remember when Indy Hartwell was in NXT. And Indy Hartwell was one of my favorites. And I saw this social media push. Indy deserves a chance. Give Indy a chance. Bring it to the main roster. Indy, give her a chance. Indy. And as much as I liked that, I was like, no, I don't want to see that. And people are like, why not? And I'm like, what are you going to do with her right now? There's too many things going on that it's going to be really difficult for her to overtake a lot of the very established women on the main roster. She doesn't have that much of a personality. She's well liked and everything. They weren't going to pair her with Dexter Lumis again. So you bring her to the main roster. She gets a little bit of play, and then she becomes enhancement talent. And then they do the storyline with Candice LeRae with a change of attitude. And, and at the end of the day, they got some pay-per-view matches, but still, they're pretty much enhancement talent. And now you're like, what do we do with her now? And she popped up back in NXT not too long ago. So, it's nice to have somebody go to the main roster. Then you got to think, okay, now what? I don't think anybody in NXT right now or AEW should go right to the main roster unless it's a major name. Unless it's a major name. The Lucha Bros might be the only exception. I do not want to see the Lucha Bros in NXT. Outside of Axiom and Nathan Frazier, who? The Chase University? No. The family? No. If you're going to bring the Lucha Bros to the WWE, put them right on the main roster. Let them feud with Legado. Let them feud with the LWO. Let them feud with another Lucha Libre team and just start it off like that. That's what I would do. You could even have them come in as friends of Dragon Lee and then have them turn on Dragon Lee. I would do that too. Tristan, what was my thoughts on Plane Ride from Hell? A bunch of people partying too much, causing problems, causing a major scene, people getting fired over it. What else is there to say? The Plane Ride from Hell was terrible. Problem is, a lot of WWE stars would party like that. Some of them would unfortunately be naked. I witnessed it in other promotions. I've told stories before of seeing people run up and down hotel rooms naked, walking by and a door is halfway open. You look inside and there's some indie girls spread eagle on a bed, hoping to get a job. Yes, willingly, but still, it's just bizarre sometimes to see that in real life. People partied. People drank a lot. People did drugs a lot more than they do now. So, being on a plane like that, especially when you're tired and you're going long distance, yeah, things could go bad quickly. Thing is now, though, is I think the way things have strengthened with security and the feds, especially with airspace, I don't think you'll see Plane Ride from Hells ever again. Mark Hicks, what was I thinking when Hogan brought back the red and yellow in WCW 99? It was okay. It was fun. I thought his NWO stuff was getting very, very stale. It was a little bit of a change of pace. It felt much different in 1993, 94. He left WWF in 92, I think, or 93, and 94 is really where he kicked off WCW. It felt much different because he had those years of being a heel behind him. It felt like nostalgia. I enjoyed it when he went back to the WWE in 03 or 02. I think it was 02. Yeah, it had to have been 02. Yeah, I think it was No Way Out. He came back with Hall Nash. That was good. Still, Voodoo Child is one of my favorite entrances in wrestling ever. Even though Kevin and I are going to have a field day with Hogan tomorrow talking about the shit he said about Benoit. Bizarre. But you know what's funny about that? You know what? I put the thumbnail in the computer already. Guys, blame it on the beer. Hogan has his own beer now. I don't know if anybody noticed his appearance on Logan Paul. Hogan was drunk. Hogan's eyes. I zoomed in. I'm not going to zoom in here now and risk fucking up my software while we're live. Hogan was plastered. The guy, blame it on the beer for this stupidity. Stupid. Kevin and I will have some fun with that tomorrow. Yes, and we'll talk about the MVP stuff as well. As much as I like MVP, as much as I wish the Hurt Business would have come back, there's a little problem with MVP's recent tirades. Who are they going to feud with? Street Profits? Probably not. like he's talking about a very one-sided viewpoint. Problem is that WWE had plans for the bloodline for somebody else, the Judgment Day for somebody else. You know, it's very easy. Oh, we're going to bring back the band. Well, the band needs to play against somebody, and ask MVP, you know, like MVP, since the bloodline was already doing this with this person and the Judgment Day was doing this with this person, and obviously Alpha Academy would be kind of stupid. And you did like what we have done. Just come out in suits and cut promos every week. So, you know, I'm sure nobody thought of that, you know, when they were talking to MVP. They were like, oh, this is good. All right, we're going to start wrapping this up because I actually still have to do the daily news update tonight. And as you could see, yeah, this is not pleasant right now. I got to remember to pick up that syringe later. Because I told my wife what I was doing, but, you know, I mean, I don't want to walk it by like, why do you have needles on the floor? So Benjamin is asking, how ridiculous is it that Hangman Page won the match and feud after burning Swerve's house down and everything else he did? If you check out my predictions from Friday morning show, we predicted everything right. Hangman Page needed to get the win in this. Because the stuff that happened last year with the crib and the house, yeah, this was different. But for those that didn't tune into my Friday morning's report, I said this before the pay-per-view. And I mentioned the comment on Twitter also, and I kind of regretted doing it because I'm like, yeah, unless I call Hangman Page an absolute asshole, say something really derogatory about Swerve, nobody's going to pay attention. But what I said was something interesting is happening with Swerve and Hangman Page. And it's happened before. I think the most infamous one on a much bigger scale was Bret Hart and Steve Austin. But what's happening now is last year, Hangman Page was technically the babyface. But Swerve, being the heel, breaking into Hangman Page's house, he did such a messed up thing by going into his kid's room that Swerve started to become badass. And fans gravitated towards Swerve in this feud. This year, it's happening with Hangman Page. And my prediction was Hangman Page was going to win because what's happening now is Hangman Page is now becoming badass for burning down the house, that the fans are going to start gravitating towards Hangman Page. And that's something that's happened to both guys. Last year, they gravitated towards Swerve. This year, they're gravitating towards Hangman Page. And that's why Hangman Page needed to win that match. Because if you want the fans to start gravitating towards him like he's badass for what he did, you have to have him have a win. You know, he wasn't going to pass out and lose like Steve Austin did WrestleMania 13. So, yeah, this was not about being babyface or heel. This was about telling a story of two guys that hate each other so much that they're willing to go to the extremes that they did. That's why I'm surprised but not surprised at what went down last night. If you think of the last match they had, you know, you knew they were going to top it, but how? Rick is asking, time for a new WWE logo as a new era. Well, they're tweaking SmackDown's logo just a little bit. But no, what's old should still be old. I mean, you know, the one thing that I'm kind of proud of is before the merger of, you know, the creation of TKO Group Holdings, you know, there was a lot of people saying, oh, brand new set, oh, brand new this and brand new that. Now, sure, different intros then, now, forever. You know, there's obviously some changes, but people were asking me, like, what's the biggest change we're going to see on TV? And I said, I don't think you're going to see much of anything. And like, why not? And I said, because You want the most important thing you want your fans to believe is that there's not going to be any drastic changes. If people are enjoying what they're enjoying right now, you don't want to feel like things are going to be turned upside down simply because new ownership came in. So to leave everything pretty much intact, gives that feeling that, oh, okay, everything is pretty much still like the machine still continues even without Vince at the helm. Many of you probably forgot when Vince stepped down, the stock went down. When Vince announced he returned, the stock went up 30%. Why? Because investors thought that Vince in the WWE equals money because of his track record. And when he had to step down again, there was a little bit of uneasiness, but within a couple of weeks, investors were like, oh, all right, WWE actually is doing okay. And then you have WrestleMania, and then you have The Rock, and then you have all this other stuff, and then the investors are like, oh, fuck. Yeah, don't come back. Hit the road, Jack. That's what it is. T. Smitty, thank you very much, my friend. T. Smitty with a super shout out. And he says, I'll put it on the screen in a moment, props to Jada Parker last week. Imagine her with another year of seasoning. Tony D'Angelo has improved in the ring, but what would I do with his character? When we did NXT predictions, I think every single one of you out there said the same thing. Jada Parker is not ready to be the focal point of the women's division in NXT. But obviously, they have something special there. The funny thing is, when Kalani Jordan was involved with Dana Brooke, there was a lot of people out there, including me, that saw something with Kalani Jordan, but it felt there was something lacking. Didn't know what it was. And I don't know if it's actually been found, but now you're starting to see how good Kalani Jordan actually is. She just needs to develop a little bit more with a personality or whatever else. But out of nowhere, here comes Jada Parker. Then you think about Lola Vice, and then you think about, my God, everybody else that's developing. And then you realize, wow, they have a lot of women in NXT that a year from now, there could be, listen, I think a year from now, at least 5 NXT women will be on the main roster. And with those 5 going to the main roster, you will have other women brought in. 1 or 2 might be from from AEW. 1 or 2 might be from the NIL program. Somebody may come back from the main roster. But there's this constant turnaround. You look at, I can't reach it here. But I have Stand and Deliver from a year ago or even 2 years ago. And you look, and almost every female on that match is now on the main roster. And you realize, holy shit, a year or 2 from now, you're going to have several women on that main roster, and it's a constant cycle. So Jada Parker a year from now, yeah, do I think she goes to the main roster a year from now? I wouldn't say that, but could she be the focal point of the women's division a year from now? Yeah. I remember, and thank you for that, I remember Braun Breaker, not this past Royal Rumble, the one before it. People were like, oh, Braun Breaker should be in the Royal Rumble. Bring him up now. And WWE kept him in NXT for another year. They turned him heel. And then they had him stay there. And then after he dropped the belt, then he started teaming up with Corbin. And meanwhile, for like the last 3-4 months that he was in NXT, people were like, why is he still in NXT? And then they promoted him, and he fit in perfectly. And you see what's going on now. So WWE, it felt like they kept him a little bit too long, but now you understand why they took their sweet ass time, and they're going to do that with others as well. As far as Tony D'Angelo goes, I really don't know I don't know what you could do with him. Listen, it's not because we have the same names. It's not because I'm the original Don, Tony. It's not because of any of that. It's not because I like Tony D. He had no real wrestling background before coming to the WWE. So to start completely green as grass and then end up where he is now, that man deserves a shitload of props. The thing is, though, is I don't know what that character will feel like on the main roster. The Italian gimmick that they do is very outdated. It might not appear outdated to the casual wrestling fan, but for me, the idea that the way they do the restaurant stuff, and the sit downs, which I'm still find it hilarious that they did a sit down with Don Tony, and that was a podcast. There's a lot of things. I know some of it was unintentional, but on the main roster though, I don't see a group of Italians the way they are now. It's outdated. I don't know if it'll get over on the main roster, and I like the group. I think Stacks is turning it around big time. I think Tony D is really, really good. Just don't know what you do with the main roster. You can't do that generic Italian stuff because it just feels way too outdated, in my opinion. So, but you know what? He's really improving in the ring. He's not a huge, expense. Like, he's not killing it in the payroll department. So this is someone where I don't think he needs to be cut, even if he's not main roster ready. So they're doing good with him. I think he may end up staying there for another year. They might bring him up. I don't know. Maybe WWE doesn't feel it's an outdated gimmick. Maybe they tweak it a little bit once they bring him to the main roster. But right now, I just picture them debuting. I don't see the WWE Universe doing that shtick. I just don't. And I'm Italian, and I just don't see it. Okay. Kevin Milwaukee says, when Tony D'Angelo said, I'm taking a super chat from Kevin Milwaukee, that's when I knew my instincts were correct that he was copying DT. So a lot of people that are like, wait, Kevin, what are you talking about? Yeah. Let me repeat that again for those on audio only. Tony D'Angelo, when he said, I'm taking a super chat from Kevin from Milwaukee, that's when he knew his instincts were correct, that Tony D was copying yours truly. So, funny. Funny. People are like, really? No, don't think it's rude. Some people like, they're going to contact Tony D. Did you really do that? No. But I do find it interesting, the podcasts out there copying our shit. The Vince stuff was fabulous, man. I don't want to name names, but you could figure out who they are. Just look over the last 48 hours. On Tuesday, we did a Patreon show. And we talked about the Vince documentary. And then I brought it up on the next Daily News Update for everybody. And I said, there's people out there that are really pushing this narrative that the documentary is something that it's not. And I said, they're going to start from the 70s. And they're going to talk about Vince Sr. And they're going to talk about Vince Jr.'s vision. And they're going to talk about the territories. And how Vince Sr. did not want the territories to go out of business. And they're going to talk about Vince Jr. and Black Saturday. And then they're going to talk about WrestleMania 1. And then the cartoon. And then the steroid trial. It's going to go, that's what it is. It's documenting Vince McMahon's entire professional wrestling career. And they're also going to talk about his personal history, his life before getting involved in the WWF. And I was like, why are people like trying to make this seem like this is the dark side of Vince McMahon? It is not. yeah, there are negative things. They're going to bring up Benoit. They're going to bring up the accusations of steroids. They're going to bring up the accusations with some of the other women. In fact, you heard it here. Don't report it as news, but you heard it here. Somebody who I trust that has been giving me accurate information for 20 years told me that a certain female that used to be in the WWE was interviewed in this documentary accusing Vince of some very, very horrible stuff. And no, it's not Janelle Grant. And this person will be featured on this documentary. I'm not going to say who it is. Not clickbaiting. The reason why I'm not saying who it is because if it ends up being wrong, I'm going to feel really, really awful to name drop this woman. But there is a woman that is going to, reveal a couple of things about Vince. They're going to talk about Ashley Mazzaro. They're going to talk about a few things, some controversies. I don't think they'll focus much on Ashley Mazzaro, unfortunately. But they're definitely going to bring up some negative things. But this is a documentary about Vince's entire life and everything that's come along with it. They're going to talk about his relationship with Trump. But the idea that it's a hit job, I don't know why anybody's saying that. It's not going to be a hit job. I think some people are going to be disappointed. I think breaking news, everyone, this is a documentary. It's not I heard, people were saying to me, Conrad said it's a total hit job. I'm like, why would he even say that? He might end up being right. If he's right, then I apologize to you. I have nothing but respect for Conrad. But when I heard that, I was like, who told you that? Jeff Jarrett? I'm like, no, this is going to really detail a lot about Vince McMahon and things that we didn't even know about his upbringing. All right. We're at 2 hours and 2 minutes. So let's go like another 15 minutes. And then we will jet. Football Talks has busted open his copy and me. Not everybody there. Dave LaGreca has been caught a few times, more than a few times. Shout out to Monty and Afaro. They're the ones that really opened my eyes. And you know what? I wouldn't even care if Dave sent me a DM and he's like, hey, dude, just have casual conversation. But, for those that don't know, and listen, obviously they'll never say it publicly. They'd be foolish to say it publicly. I have nothing but appreciation for Bully Ray, and Thunder Rosa does a great job, and Nick Nemeth is doing a good job. Dave LaGreca actually isn't that bad because I know with Dave LaGreca why he is there. And there is a method to the discussions that they have. That is a safe space for WWE. They will talk as if things are real. So I get it. I'm not besmirching that. But over a bunch of years, we would have certain discussions, Kev and I, and we would say certain things in a certain way. And then the next day, almost word for word, it would be said the same exact way. And we knew about this for years. So a little story about 4 years ago, I think it was about 4 years ago. It was probably about 6 months before Kev and I split. People were telling us, did you hear Dave last night? He was, he said your shit word for word. A little too weird how he said it exactly the same way. So I don't remember what the conversation was, but Kevin and I said something on the show. We don't like doing this. And I have admitted this before. We don't like doing this. But we said something intentionally wrong, something about history. And we wanted to see if it's brought up that way. And sure enough, the next fucking day, he compared something, I think, with Cena and something from 20 years ago and mentioned the wrong wrestler. And we intentionally said the wrong wrestler, and he said it word for word. And at the time, I think I said to Kev, I'm like, Kev, I'm going to fucking throw his shit on blast on this show. And Kev's like, come on, we've kind of like made amends, with other people and, just whatever. And I'm glad that we didn't do it, but he's not the only one. Any of you remember about 2-3 months ago, I played that vignette of that guy from like 20 years ago, 15 years ago? Everything that we said on a show, this guy that had some wrestling show repeated our shit word for word. Remember the Kurt Angle stuff and Cody Deaner and everything we said, everything word, and we put it back and forth. Byron is asking, when do I think Raquel Rodriguez returns? She's on the road to recovery. She is training in the ring. Some people think that Raquel Rodriguez is going to feud with Rhea Ripley. I don't know if that'll happen because Raquel Rodriguez probably would return as a babyface. I don't think anybody wants to see her as a heel. Maybe she aligns with Rhea Ripley. But I think Raquel Rodriguez, barring any complications, I think we'll be back within the next couple of weeks. I think she will be back within the next couple of weeks. I really do. I don't know if I could play that tape, Detective Morales. I don't think I have it handy. I don't even remember what we called it. Oh, I think we called it Ripoff. Maybe I do have it. Do I have it? I don't know. I'm looking. I think it said Ripoff Caller or something like that. That might have been it. Ripoff Caller? I don't. Yeah, I spur in a moment, it's almost impossible for me to find it, but you never know. I'm looking really quickly. I don't think we're going to find it. Let me see. Rip off. No. Next week. Well, I think we'll share it next week. I'm a little surprised I don't have it in this computer over here. I usually keep everything, but let me just put rip. Nope. No. Sorry. Next show. My thoughts on Stephen P. New talking about Jim Ross got paid a lot of money to do nothing for about 5 years now. I personally don't, and I'll get to DeMarcus in a second. Jim Ross has had some health issues. He's older. He works behind the scenes. He's not just a play-by-play guy. So, no, he has not sat on his ass and done nothing for 5 years. But even if he did, so what? I listen, I like Stephen P. New. And I don't know what's going to happen in that lawsuit with Kevin Kelly and the Tate twins. But, Stephen P. New is a very, very smart lawyer and he's legit. I just don't know what was the purpose there. Like to take a shot at Tony Khan. I mean, I choose wrestlers that have not been used. Jim Ross, I don't think really that needed to be done. Because Jim Ross is, he's had some issues and maybe even props for AEW keeping him on the payroll despite those issues. It's funny, during COVID, everybody's praising AEW for not firing anyone during COVID. Now you got Jim Ross, who has earned, GOAT status. And, because he's not doing play-by-play every week, that, Tony Khan is paying him to do nothing. So what? Like, really, I don't criticize that. DeMarcus, how hilarious was the Shockmaster's debut in real time? I don't think I ever thought it would become as iconic as it was. Him tripping and putting on the funny thing about it was, I think, listen, do I remember exactly what I was doing, where I was when it happened? No, I did watch it when it happened. they were doing a flare for the gold, I think. They were doing those talking segments, but the thing I thought that was funny about it was the mask, the helmet, looked like somebody went to Toys R Us, bought a Stormtrooper helmet, and then went to whatever store was open at that time, Pergament, and bought like spray paint with glitter or whatever and spray painted a Stormtrooper helmet. Like it looked cheap. It looked goofy. And then on top of it, I think it was Ole Anderson that was doing the voiceovers for it. You want a piece of me? And I'm like, what's going to happen when he hits the ring and he cuts a promo? I mean, I get it. He's wearing a helmet so nobody could see his mouth. So Arn Anderson could be in the back on the microphone and you got the helmet on and you just pretty much, like, you would think it's him talking. But this isn't like Nails that sooner or later, like people got to figure it out. I don't know what they were thinking at that time, but when he tripped and fell, though, it was funny because the wall was thin as it was. Then the helmet fell off. Then he put it back on. And I didn't think it was Fred Ottman at the time. All I know is whoever it was fat and short. And I'm like, who is this fat and short guy wearing a fucking Stormtrooper helmet spray painted? It just looked cheap and it looked goofy. And it was funny, but it was like stupid. I didn't think it would ever become as iconic as it was. Yes, it was a Stormtrooper helmet. Listen, if you ever go check out XPW's Hostile Takeover event, all right? Hostile Takeover. I'm trying to remember the name of the tag team who fought Mexico's Most Wanted was Brian XL and somebody else. I can't remember the name of the team. Maybe someone does remember, and props to you if you do, but it might have not even been Hostile Takeover. It might have been the next show after, which might have been Enter Sandman. And thank you, DeMarcus, for that. We had a tag team, and they were very, very popular at the time. I don't remember if they were in Ring of Honor, but we went to Home Depot and Sports Authority because they wanted them to come out wearing masks, and we had no masks for them. Two white guys. So, oh God, what was their names? Nick something? I can't remember. No, Dead Presidents was Boogaloo and Lowrider. I can't remember. Oh my God, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Well, anyway, we went to Sports Authority and bought 2 hockey masks. And then we went to, I think, Home Depot, whatever it was at the time, and we bought silver spray paint and something else. And we spray painted them, and we bought like quick dry. And this was like maybe an hour before the show started. And, we spray painted everything. They came out with them, and it looked badass. But then one of them took the mask off, and he had like kind of an outline of the paint around his head a little bit, and it was kind of funny. I don't think you really could see it that much on camera, because back then the video quality was not what it is now. It's not 4K or anything. But I was sitting at the timekeeper's table, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, what the hell is that around his head? And I'm like, oh shit, that's the spray paint. Because we bought quick dry, but I guess the sweat or whatever, like the spray paint went on his head. Trying to remember his name. I think they were in NWA, or they were definitely a very, very young team, and they're very popular too. No, they weren't black. 2 white guys. New Black Panthers are 2 black guys. Shit. And it's right at the tip of my tongue. And if I say who it is, I know one of them is very, very famous. Not famous, but famous enough that I'll let you know on the next show. I'll let you know on the next. I'm almost tempted to look it up. Oh, you know what? Maybe I can. Because I'm not using my computer. I'll fuck it up. I'll just look very quickly. XPW Enter Sandman. That might be the show. Now, wait. That's when Joey Styles did commentary. Hold on. Oh, crap. It sent me to Amazon. There's no match results here. I remember Shark Boy being on the card. Wasn't Altar Boy Luke? I can't remember the name. You know what I think it was? I think it was XPW Fallout. I bet you that's... We'll look one more thing and then we'll get out of here. XPW Fallout. Let me pull that up. Fallout. Let me see. XPW Fallout. That might be the event. Let me see. No. Nope. It's not Fallout. That's Boogaloo and Lowrider. Shit, I can't remember. There were two white guys, like really skinny guys, but one of them ended up becoming pretty well known in wrestling. I'll let you know next week. I'll definitely let you know next week. So, I mean, we could keep looking up XPW history, but man, that's pissing me off now. It wasn't XPW Fallout, wasn't XPW Enter Sandman. What was the other one? It wasn't Hostile Takeover. I don't remember it being on Hostile Takeover. They weren't on the first ever show because that was Brian XL and not Stokely Hathaway. There was another guy that would have very similar name. Can't remember the fucking name and it's pissing me off. XPW Events, ECW Arena. Let's see what comes up. All right. XPW... let's see. It's not going to show it, man. I'm pissed. I'm really pissed because we should be able to figure it out. XPW events. All right, let's do 2002. I know it's 2002, so we're narrowing it down. We're narrowing it down. Okay, let's see. We have no, maybe it's 2003. No, it's good. Damn, fucking Google sucks, man. It ain't what it used to be. My Bloody Valentine, no. All right, we got cage match. Motherfucker. Go figure, man. Leave it to cage match. Literally cage match. The website that I can't stand might end up giving us this answer. Holy shit, that would be pretty funny. All right, let's see. Merry effing Christmas. Let's look at Merry effing Christmas. All right, I think we're going to find it. Oh, yeah, I got it. Euthanasia. Matt Cross. Anybody know who M-Dog 20? Anybody remember Matt Cross? M-Dog 20 and Josh Prohibition. That's who it was. Go, if you ever want to, go to XPW Merry Effin' Christmas 2002 and look at their entrance. And you'll see them wearing hockey masks, silver hockey masks with spray paint. And me and Slash were the ones that spray painted everything. And they told us, make sure you buy the quick dry. And we bought the quick dry, and I think Matt Cross took the mask off, and I'm sitting at the timekeeper's table, and he's got this gray streak going around his head. It was pretty freaking funny, man. Yeah, Matt Cross, M-Dog 20. Shout out to Gruss. I think Gruss figured it out too. Yeah, that's who it was. So I'm glad we figured it out. That was a fun night, man. I think, was that the night that we celebrated Lizzie Borden's birthday? I don't remember if that was the night, but I'm not going to start looking up results now. But go figure. I always criticize Cage Match, and Cage Match ends up giving us the goddamn answer. I mean, even though Gruss had it too, but still, that's funny, man. All right. I don't remember what their names were. Other than I think they were M-Dog 20 And I don't, no, they were using their name, M-Dog20 and Josh Prohibition. I know that for a fact because I remember saying Josh Prohibition on that night. They were just known as Euthanasia. So they were good. They actually beat Mexico's Most Wanted that night. They did a good job. So, man, that was 21 years ago, 22 years ago. Yeah, 22 years ago. All right. Let's start bringing it home. Start bringing it home. Yeah, you know what? Cage match is good, I guess, for pulling up information. I mean, Wiki used to be good. It's not as good as it used to be. Somebody asked me before, when am I going to get my Wiki page? I don't know. I don't think I don't think I've warranted a wiki page. I do have a wrestling wiki page. If you ever go on the wrestling Wikipedia website, look up Don Tony. It's pretty cool. I didn't make it, but it actually has my managerial stuff. It's got my in-ring 3 matches of crap. It's got, I think it mentions podcasting too. It's actually pretty cool. All right. Let's do 3 more questions and we'll get out of here. We'll end up going 2.5 hours, which I think is pretty manageable. Fun episode tonight. Let me know how you felt about yesterday. What do you think? I mean, can we all agree though that AEW is a niche product? That it's not meant to be, a product to entertain every wrestling fan out there? Sure. There's never been a wrestling company that gets 100% approval rate. Not everybody was ever a WWE fan. Not everybody was a WCW fan. Not everybody was an ECW fan. You can say about anybody. But this is a niche product. You can put this almost in the ECW category at this point. ECW had great wrestling. ECW, and everybody seems to think that it was, when ECW had great wrestling, it was Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio Jr. and Psychosis and Hoovy. No, there were good wrestlers after that, and it wasn't just Candido and Shane Douglas. And they had good wrestling after that. Tajiri, my God, Tajiri wasn't hardcore, and Tajiri was fucking phenomenal in ECW. They had some decent wrestlers, but ECW was always labeled as a hardcore promotion. I think AEW really went out of their way to establish their identity or solidify their identity. This is a niche company. And until people start accepting that, the ones who insist on putting WWE in the same sentence of AEW are not helping AEW. You look at all those pundits that do podcasts and are journalists and writers and bloggers that keep saying all the advice they give AEW. You know what they all have in common? And even some people who I'm friends with all due respect, everybody who critiques AEW right now and addresses, whatever, creative matches, women's, what every single one of them have in common? They're trying to fix AEW like they would fix WWE. They're trying to fix AEW where it would appeal to the masses. AEW is a niche product. It is a niche promotion. What happened yesterday was not, we should have never done something like that. We'll never do anything like that ever again. Yeah, they'll say that because of the storyline with Swerve and Hangman Page. That's a big difference than, we should have never used glass. We should have never used the syringe. We should have never used chairs. We should have never used this. No, that's not what they're repentive of. They're talking about not doing things again because a feud that deep, that hatred, should never get to that point ever again. AEW is a niche product. You have to treat it like a niche product. That's why Warner Brothers Discovery doesn't have that much of an issue with the ratings, despite what people want to tell you on social media. They'll laugh and they'll do videos with all these graphics, no mill, this and that, making fun of things. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers Discovery is like, man, you have too much fucking free time on your hands. All those people that do that comedic stuff, it is funny. But as I'm reading that, I'm like, you have too much free time on your hands. Ralph Ramirez is asking, and thank you, Ralph, again. I hope you got my apology the other day. I was talking with somebody named Richard right before we went live last week. And I think I kept saying Richard Ramirez, which was funny because recently I saw the documentary about that guy, the serial killer, Richard Ramirez. So kept calling you Richard last week. But what is the strangest thing I ever saw at a Frank Goodman show? The altercation with Loki and Sonny. Loki denies it. Sonny denied it once, but there was about 50 people that saw it, a lot of wrestlers as well, and people have vouched for me online about it. For those that don't know the full story, Loki was, I think, feuding or going to wrestle Chris Candido. God rest his soul. And I don't remember what year it was. I don't know if it was 2004 or 2005. It was right around that time. We were in Long Island. And something happened where Chris Candido and Loki got into a shouting match in the hallway. And Loki picked up a chair and threw it across the hallway. And it came within inches of hitting Sonny right in the face. And whatever you think about Sonny right now, look, she's deserving of all the punishment she's getting right now. But at that time, you know, it was a messed up incident. Frank Goodman was there. He saw it. A lot of other people saw it. I don't know if Frank actually saw it because we were in this big cafeteria hall and it happened in the hallway. But there were a lot of people that did see it and they pulled them apart. And ever since then, I always hated Loki. I don't hate him now. I mean, but I always thought he was very unprofessional, very disrespectful. I will never, ever forget this. The last ever wrestling show at the Elks Lodge was in 2003, I think it was. And I went halves with Frank Goodman for the last ever Elks Lodge. That's when the Triple Threat reunited. And you know the story where Bam Bam Bigelow mooned the crowd. I played the footage for all of you. That was the night where I was in the back watching their bags. Frank and I went halves on that show. And one of the matches on that show was Loki versus Sanjay Dutt. I played that match on one of these episodes like 2 years ago. I have the footage still in the computer. And remember, this is 20 years ago. And the match was given 5 stars. The match was insane. And there was about 1,400 or 1,500 people in the building, which was beyond a sellout for that building. Might have even been more than that. It was only standing room only. And I think a Japanese magazine interviewed Loki about the match. It got back internationally on how good this match was. And people were tape trading and people got the match. I think it was a Japanese magazine that interviewed Loki and asked him, said, you know, what are your thoughts on that match against Sanjay Dutt in Queens? And his exact words were, the match was tremendous. I wish it would have been for a different company. And I was like, fuck you, man. Fuck you. Seriously. You know, because it was Frank Goodman, and I'm sure probably could still kick my ass now. I don't think Loki is like that anymore. But at that time, Loki was a jerk. I even think Dutch Mantel just did a video talking about like the biggest jerks of the locker room from back in the day. And I think he had Loki on that list. Loki was not liked by a lot of people. Awesome wrestler, intense as fuck, very, very dedicated. That is tremendous qualities to have as a wrestler, but probably should have done more on a mainstream level, but didn't. And I think a lot of it was because of his attitude. So Nixie says Loki recently said Vince put a hit job on him. Listen, if Vince was going to put a hit job on anybody, it probably would have been on somebody that he abused physically and was afraid that they were going to out him. I don't think Vince cared that much about Caval. I think he probably would have just turned around and said, "You're fired." Like, hit job? I don't believe it. All right. I'm in a jet. We're at 2.5 hours. So, just a reminder again, Kevin and I will be live next week, right here. Oh, shit. I forgot to show you. Saturday's All Out event. Hangman Page and Swerve. I don't know if you saw it during the show, but David Benoit was at the event. David Benoit was at the event. We do this every show now. For those that don't tune in on a regular basis, we got this weird footage that I think that looks like David Benoit. But yeah, like Ric Flair was there. We have our version with David Benoit. So all right. Tomorrow, Kevin and I will be live doing the next installment of the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show. Next Sunday, Kevin and I will be here live. And we'll see. We're going to be answering all your questions, having some fun conversation, doing like we have done the last couple of times on YouTube. And if the turnout is great, I will convince Kev to come back here in October. And we'll do one probably around Halloween time. Kind of mix it up a little bit. Wrestling, Halloween, and some other shit. And we will go from there. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend, what's left of it. Here in New York, we're at 10:40 p.m. So I got to get this online for everyone. Believe it or not, yeah, still bleeding. Terrible. Terrible. The eggplant parmesan, I admit it was good, but I don't think it was worth this. So this kind of sucks. I just wanted to stop bleeding. It won't stop bleeding. It reminds me of that Beavis and Butthead episode when I think Beavis was bleeding. He had the nosebleed and it wouldn't stop, and they kept doing all these things. Yeah. I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding. Much love, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Now, remember, this week we have Raw, NXT, and SmackDown on the USA Network. 3 straight weeks, and then NXT goes to CW. And I believe all the shows are less commercials this week. Now, the NFL is back, so ultimately it's going to affect the viewership of some of these shows. But, as I have always said, last week I think Dave Meltzer said about Collision record low rating that tennis was on and the news was big. And I'm just like scratching my head and I'm like, no, wrestling fans, if they don't watch Collision, they don't watch Raw, they don't watch NXT Dynamite, that means that they have decided that your product was not important enough to tune in live on that particular day. The idea is when you put on a good enough product, wrestling fans choose you over something else. I know for a fact, being an old-time hardcore baseball fan, that when the Monday Night Wars were going on, I recorded baseball games on my TiVo and my VHS and watched them later on and watched wrestling live. When wrestling started to suck, obviously we had to cover it doing the hotlines and the podcast, but many times I would record wrestling and watch something else live. So whenever you see low ratings, no matter what product it is, all that means is that wrestling fans decided your show was not important to watch live that night, and they decided to do something else instead. I don't care if it's news. I don't care if it's tennis. I don't care if there's an earthquake. I don't care if there's a mass shooting. I don't care if there's an election. I don't care if it's January 6th. I don't care if there's a beauty pageant. I don't care if there's baseball playoffs. That means they decided they preferred to do something else than watch your show live that night. That's all it is. Gross, I don't have the ratings in front of me. Check out Friday morning's news update. All I know is that Collision was the lowest rating in its history, and Rampage was the second lowest. And the ratings, yeah, we got into the breakdowns and everything. It was not a good week But, again, and you know what's interesting? Collision and Rampage, you know what? That might be the reason why those ratings are so low. Because last night is a great example of what AEW is as a niche product. Rampage and Collision does not reflect a lot of what you saw yesterday. You don't see much. I mean, you do see sometimes a Falls Count Anywhere or Texas Bull Rope match or this and that, but not on the level like you saw yesterday. No, I don't expect to see cage matches and what Chris Statlander Willow did on a Collision. I don't expect that. But even ECW, when ECW was on TNN or Spike, when ECW was on the Prime Network, even if it was an hour long, you still felt the ECW aura, even if it was somewhat watered down. What you watch on Rampage Collision feels completely different identity than what you see on these pay-per-views. You got to have a little bit of consistency there. WWE, when you watch a premium live event, the only thing that's missing on the premium live events is usually storylines. It's usually see the matches as a result of storylines, but you don't see storyline progression as much as weekly television. But what you see on the premium live event feels like a continuation of what you watch on Raw and SmackDown. When you see the TV shows like Collision and Rampage, it doesn't feel like a continuation of Dynamite, and it doesn't feel like a lead-in to a pay-per-view, even if matches directly have implications. It feels like a totally watered down, different product. So, all right, guys, I'm going to jet out of here. Have a good one. Much love as always. I hope you can join us Monday night after Raw and bookmark it now. I'll have the link online tomorrow for next Sunday show. Kevin and I will be live 8:05 p.m. Have a good one, everyone. I'll talk to you all again soon. Be well.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.